Cool. Have a great session, guys.
All right. Great. Thank you. Great.
Clicking broadcast and nothing's happening. Can everybody else see the? Can you see the broadcast?
Oh, yeah, we have people flying in now. I think it's gone live.
This is the awkward phase where everyone can see back there, like 11.
Yeah. Okay.
No worries.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Simon, are you okay to go?
I'm happy. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session today on how you can wrangle funds and other things from corporates for your RAGs and student groups. My name is Josh. I'm from the NASA committee, and I'm proud to present to you today Simon Lucy from the Hype Collective. Just to confirm, this session is being recorded today, so if you're not comfortable with potentially being in a recording, you can leave now and access the session later on when we post them online. I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce Simon. If you have any questions for Simon during the presentation, could you please put them in the Q&A box, and then I will put them to Simon throughout the session and at the end as well. And if you could please as well just introduce yourselves in the session chat so we know who you are and where you're coming from. And we will also carry on the conversation as well in the coffee shop afterwards. I'll post a link to this in the session chat as Simon is presenting. But yeah, without further ado, Simon, I'll hand it over to you. Enjoy the session, everybody.
Thanks very much, Josh. Really appreciate it. Yeah, to echo Josh, it'd be really useful. I could see a couple of you coming through. If you could introduce yourselves, which societies you're part of. I did this talk at the National Student Fundraising Conference last year, and it was a lot more interactive and fun face-to-face. So yeah, it's great to see some of you guys put in your names and societies in there. Got Surf Radio, nice. Well, Rag at Bath. Cool, they're all coming through. Talk a little bit about the who, what, why of kind of trying to wrangle funds, and then I've got 5 practical tips. As I said, when I did this at the National Student Fundraising Conference last year, it was a lot more fun because we could break up into groups and kind of work collaboratively with some ideas. So I'm going to try and get some of that into today's session by posting questions to you guys in the chat. But yeah, for now, as a quick introduction to Hype, as we describe what we do as kind of grassroots creative campaigns. So that means that we work with big brands that want to target students. So we work with brands like kind of Co-op, Adobe, we've worked with Monster, worked with Abercrombie and Fitch, people like that in the past. And in terms of our kind of, I wanted to show you these slides because this is actually how we position ourselves to corporates. It's not how we position ourselves to students. And I guess one of the things that you guys, your sales process, if we talk about how you guys get sponsorship and funds, is actually quite similar to Hype Collectives, because what we're promising organisations is the ability to reach students. The only difference is we can do it nationally, whilst yours will be kind of locally focused. So this is kind of a little bit about how we communicate what we do. In terms of what that looks like and what our clients are interested in buying, there's 4 kind of core services. No prizes for guessing which one's taken the biggest hit, which is the one on the left, the events. But yeah, those on-campus events and experiential is a huge part of what we do. That picture is a session that we did for Adobe. We also have influencers, which is more of a kind of promising social reach for brands. Media planning and buying is probably the least relevant to you. And then the third and final element is student research. So we can provide brands with insights and kind of, I suppose, feedback direct from students. A lot of these services are services that you guys could almost replicate, or services that you can offer to some extent. Our secret weapon is we built a network of about 5,000 university sports teams and societies. So we use them as our kind of audience. And firstly, you can join that network today and we will send you opportunities. I'll ping across the link at the end. And it's really, if we're talking about ways for you to earn funds, I think over the last 2.5 years, we've given funds to about 150 different university sports teams and societies. I will say, like, to manage expectations, like we work with a small number of clients, we're a small agency, there's 6 of us in London. So we are not a bank, and definitely register with us, but I wouldn't factor in and bank on us being able to give you funds. The reason for that is most of our clients will have quite a niche group that they're looking to target. So maybe it's an employer that wants to recruit more women who study tech courses. If your society kind of represents that audience, then great, but we won't be able to go to that employer and suggest they sponsor, the men's rugby team if that's kind of who they're looking to target. A little side plug, we're actually recruiting brand ambassadors for the next academic year. So this is ad hoc work on behalf of our clients. So if you're looking at something which is going to help you on a personal level, but not for your society, this is an opportunity to earn a bit of cash alongside your degree. We pay £10.50 an hour, and there's loads of benefits, and it looks great on your CV. So that's Hype Collective. As usual, if you do have any questions, chuck them in, but I'm going to jump into the kind of how to wrangle funds. So the first thing is, and I'm going to kind of come on to how you package this all up later, but we get a huge amount of kind of cold emails from societies saying, look, we're looking to raise £1,000 to sponsor this event that we're hosting or for this good cause. The key thing that I think needs to change in almost every single one of those emails that come to us is those emails come to us thinking about kind of what that society needs. And I want today to kind of go through the process of looking at what a corporate might need. And I want us to flip how we position kind of what we have to offer so that it's more, so it shows that we're thinking about what they need and not what we need. Because ultimately, if you're a big corporate sponsoring society, usually this isn't a financial problem. These organizations have loads of money. The problem is actually, it's just the faff. Can they be asked? And what's the point? Basically, you're creating an extra task for someone to do by going and getting, somebody to sign this off, somebody to create the PO. You need to justify it in terms of the benefits that are going to be to them. So I'm going to take you through a process, and it'd be great to kind of get your ideas of who your society represents. So we'll start off with the who, and there's actually 2 who's. So there's who for your society and sports team. So every society and sports team represents a different group, right? And that might be sometimes very explicit. So you might have it based on a nationality. So, you might have an Indian society and all your members are either British students of Indian heritage or international students from India who've come up. That's obviously a very tightly defined society. You might have the student media, which is a little bit looser in terms of all kind of nationalities might join, all genders might join. However, there is still kind of a pattern. You're getting your creative types of students, maybe the artsy ones. I say this as the former editor of Cardiff Student Magazine, but you're getting the slightly left-wing kind of. There's definitely a pattern to the people that were in our student media office. So I think it's a really interesting exercise to go through your society and think, right, what are the patterns and which ones are explicit or not explicit? If I look back at Cardiff student media in, God, what year was it? This is embarrassing and dates me, 2008. Okay, so on sex and gender, it was a fairly even split. I think it was fairly female dominated. Ethnicity, I mean, it was 2008 in Cardiff, not very diverse. Region, I guess everyone was kind of primarily from the southwest. Interests, there was definitely some common themes. If I look at music, this was, things have changed, it was all indie. You can almost create a personality of the students that you represent. And I think from that, you're going to get a typical characteristics that your society over-indexes on when compared with the student population. So that gives you kind of, I guess, ultimately what you guys have to sell is your access to your members and their connections, right? So if say I'm going to sponsor, who we got here, let's say Durham University Ethical and Sustainability Fashion Society, right? So if I'm going to sponsor that, I guess that, and this is making some massive assumptions, but I guess that's slightly female dominated, obviously ethical and sustainability focused. So that really is a key thing. I guess I could probably map out what I think your typical members might look like. That's what you're selling. On top of that, you're selling their connections. So who is the typical member of your society connected to? I can sort of map out what they might look like. And then you go into who would want to speak to them. So let's go back to the University Ethical and Sustainability Fashion Society. So you kind of got two things in there. You've got the fashion element and you've got the and the sustainability and ethics side of what you do. So instantly, the people that I think of that might want to speak to you is anyone that has kind of sustainability as part of their core messaging. So out of our clients, the ones I'd look at is Co-op, because sustainability is a huge part of what they do. And I think it maps out who might want to speak to you. If I then compare that to my student media days, now we're looking for brands that are interested in kind of creativity. So out of our client roster, the brand that I'd be going to is Adobe, because they're very interested in getting more young people using Adobe products. Adobe products are all about creativity. So I think you could probably divide up your, it's interesting to divide up all your potential sponsors. And I think you can divide them quite neatly into three categories. So you've got your local, you've got your employers, and you've got your brand. So in your local category, I'd have kind of small businesses. So they might be, a local independent takeaway or food outlet, a local bar or restaurant, a local independent gym. The reason I've separated them out from kind of big brands is because I think these guys have different requirements from you. And for each of these, there's kind of big differences. So for the local, the pros are that they're relatively easy to find. Geographically, it's that, takeaway pizza place that's just around the corner from campus that everyone goes to, or it's the, the gym that's just around the corner. Let's hope maybe they'll open one day. These local independents, and it's remarkable. I've got 15 minutes into this and I haven't mentioned COVID yet, but these local retailers primarily, I guess, are heavily dependent on the student pound. There's businesses that will completely, their margin will completely fall during the summer when students leave. And I think there's an opportunity here with COVID in that some of the traditional channels that they would look at, which is, just going out on campus and flyering or going to your freshers fair, a lot of those channels aren't going to work this year. So I think actually that yes, the total budget that people have to spend on marketing to students has shrunk, definitely, but the opportunity is that a huge number of the channels that people would have spent money on before aren't going to be there and don't work. So then if we compare to employers, right, employers have kind of very different needs. Most employers actually get too many applications. So they don't just need all your society members to enter. What most employers' kind of biggest problem is that they are fighting a very slow battle to improve their diversity and inclusion. And they're doing it about 5 or 10 years too late, and they've realized that they've basically screwed it up. So there's huge opportunities here to get in touch with the right organizations if you represent students that that are in demand, basically. So again, the pros is you know who they are. They're probably the ones that are already advertising on your campus. The best way to think about it is to go to last year's careers fairs and just find out who exhibited. Every single person at that careers fair is paying like, you know, £800, £1,000 to be at the careers fair, plus all the trains and staff and all that, and the banners and all that. So really, that's probably not going to happen this year. There's probably an opportunity for you to kind of fit and help them. I think there's opportunities to kind of partner with them on a deeper level. Ultimately, these employers should be providing you with opportunities that are beyond financial. So, you know, maybe they're going to provide mentoring opportunities or CV sessions. The challenges are, these are now you're getting into bigger organizations. So finding the right individual is really, really tricky. And again, they tend to have very specific audiences that they are looking for. And if you don't represent that audience, then it can be tricky. And then finally, your big brands. So, you know, this is the Domino's, Adobe's, Co-ops, whatever. These guys can have huge marketing budgets. They can make you look awesome as well. You know, to partner with Adobe, it would make a student media outlook look really great because Adobe adds so much credibility. The biggest challenge is that these people are really hard to find and the sales process can be very, very slow. So like now is the time to get in touch with those organizations because it's really important. So yeah, into kind of why they want to engage with you. And I've dotted around a little bit here, but yeah, I hope this is useful. So I guess probably the biggest difference is like when I was at university, I think, so I was part of the student media and we used to get some free pizza from Domino's once a week, I think. I hope if we've got Cardiff student media in the room, if you could confirm if the Domino's is still going, that would be amazing. And then apart from that, we didn't get a huge amount of money from brands. And I think probably my thought at that stage was these were brands that were looking to help us, basically. So they appreciated that we didn't have much cash and that that what we were doing was kind of important. In reality, for 98% of organizations that you're going to work with, that's complete rubbish, right? All they want to do is either recruit you or sell to you. So it's very simple. The local organizations really care about selling. The employers obviously care about recruitment. The brands, it's slightly different because they might want to sell their product, but they also care a bit about kind of brand awareness and goodwill, which I don't think the local organizations are going to care about so much. So think about this in terms of like how you're packaging up your recommendations. So in terms of what you're going to sell them, what's going to make someone part with, I guess, like for a lot of organizations, it really depends. Like some societies, just to get £500 sponsorship would really change things. For others, you know, you're looking for much bigger figures. But I guess like what is going to get your typical like sponsor interested? And you know, before COVID, I would have said this, which is obviously not appropriate anymore. But as I said earlier, like it is all about your audience. That's the thing that you guys can provide that is useful. So kind of some pointers around this is just sticking your logo on your website and socials, or their logo on your website and socials, is almost a complete waste of time, right? No one cares. Like if Accenture have their logo on the, I'm going to pick on someone, on the, oh God, who am I going for? St Andrews, oh yeah, we'll go RAG at Bath Uni. So if Accenture had sponsored RAG at Bath Uni, the number of people that will see that logo on your websites and socials is so small compared to Accenture's reach that it's almost not worth doing. And I actually think there's a bigger risk that you'll end up, you know, putting the wrong logo up or distorting it. So I think we need to think more creatively. And I think if that's currently on your, if brand awareness is kind of a core part of your proposition to organisations at the moment, I would have a serious think about how you package it up. So in terms of setting about thinking about like what you can actually do, I think it has to, and another good Venn diagram, I think it has to match kind of two things. So it has to be easy for you to deliver, and it has to be in demand from sponsors, right? So if it's too hard for you to deliver, then it's not really worth it, unless they're paying you loads of money. And if it's not in demand, no one's going to pay for it. So the logos on your social channels and stuff like that is very easy for you to deliver, but it's not in demand. Similarly, you could offer to Accenture to recruit 15 graduates onto their, you know, placement program or something like that. That's massively in demand, however, very hard to deliver. So I think you have to find something in the middle. So this is actually a physical event that we ran last year, but I think is something that you could easily do virtually, right? So this was sponsored by a graduate employer, and we sponsored 4 societies. So it was the Oil and Gas Society, this was in Manchester, the Oil and Gas Society, the Women in Physics, the Women in Business, and the Bright Futures Society. And we sponsored each of these 4 societies to promote this talk. So each of them had a target of bringing, I think it was 30 people along, and they got bonuses if they brought more people. Now, this is very easy for you to do, and to get bums on seats, even if they are virtual and remote, is still massively valuable to these graduate employers. So could you, you know, partner maybe either alone as a society, pitch a graduate employer an event, or could you collaborate with other similar societies as we did here, and run an event that gets kind of a bigger audience? So in terms of what you need to do, I think like in terms of the when, it's got to be now. These companies are infuriatingly slow, and I think the challenge will be with every society is what will happen is they'll get Freshers Week over and done with. They'll at that stage have an exec, obviously all appointed. They'll have a couple of meetings, and then somebody will think, right, I'm going to drop, you know, so and so at Accenture a message and see if we can do some sponsorship. If you guys can be doing that now, firstly, you've got ahead of pretty much every single one in the student space. And secondly, you're actually speaking to people when they're planning their marketing campaign. So the peak marketing, the time where most people try to advertise towards students is around the freshers period. So it's September, October, November. And that's when most brands will care about speaking to students. So if you can be going to organizations now and saying, look, we'll host a virtual event for you in October, and we'll guarantee 50 people that match your requirements will be on that call. That's something that's really attractive. Next up is the kind of the where. So in terms of where you're going to find these people, now this is really tricky, and I think like if I go back to that original slide where we compare local employer and big brands, you know, I think it's almost, that's the order of how easy it is. So the local ones are are fairly easy. You know, you can actually pop into that local coffee shop that sells loads of, you know, baguettes to sandwiches to students, or you can pop into, you know, even like hairdressers when they're back open and stuff like that. You can do kind of partnerships with them. The next one up is, you know, the employer brands. You know, is searching on LinkedIn and finding the right people. And the big brands are really, is kind of, I guess, the hardest. The key thing is, and this is, you know, where the world is unfair, is those with existing connections are going to do so much better. So if you, within your society, can make it, the challenge is this always falls on one person's head, right? There will be one person that manages sponsorship, right? If they don't have the right connections, then no one seems to help them. If you can create some sort of shared accountability across your entire society to help find sponsorship, and maybe everyone has to try and find one introduction or one person through their network, then you're going to basically make it a lot easier for yourselves. So yeah, so some practical tips, and some of this I've kind of hinted at as we've gone along. So apologies if it's repeating itself. But as I said, first thing is that we can't ignore is COVID-19. So there's a huge number of graduate employers, brands, and local businesses are worried about what September, October is going to look like for students, and they're worried about how they're going to get their message out. It means that also, like if I speak to my clients at the moment, a lot of them haven't even fully planned October yet. So most of my clients would normally have October all booked in, ready to go. It's done, it's dusted. We can start just planning on actually how it's going to happen. But this year, because of COVID, everything's delayed, which actually has created opportunities, because you're, you know, back to that slide about timing, you're actually going to be getting in touch with people a little bit earlier in the decision-making process of what they do. So yeah, have a think about what that means. I think there's going to be, like, the real obvious one to me is kind of local takeaway businesses, because they're going to do, if we are socializing more in the home, which sounds like we may well be doing, they're going to be doing really well. On the flip side, if marketing channels are limited, so freshers fairs and things like that, they're going to be worried, how can we not capitalize on it? So it's worth them putting some investment in to get there. So I do think that there's a huge opportunity with those. I guess, you know, a classic would have been sports teams getting sponsored by bars and clubs. That's probably going to be a lot harder this year. It's kind of hard to imagine that going ahead at the moment. Second thing, really simple, is advertised opportunities. So I know, for example, Accenture sponsor a certain number of societies and sports teams each year. You can just go on their website and find out about it. Sadly, there isn't one cohesive list of like opportunities for students to get sponsorship. I don't think that I've come across. Do just, you know, find those advertised opportunities. They're likely to be more competitive because obviously everyone knows about them, but at least you know that brand is kind of committed to doing it. Thirdly, as I said earlier, connections. I think like that I can't overestimate how much better your odds are of success if you have like a warm introduction or connection to that business. So if you can find people within your society or network who can facilitate those introductions, that's really useful. Fourth one is, don't always shoot for cash. Freebies cost them a lot less. So, you know, Domino's Pizza, you know, if you go down to Domino's, a pizza will probably cost £15. It doesn't cost them £15 to make. So if your society needs that sort of things, if it needs food for events, you don't have to always pitch for the cash. Have a think about what you need across the year. Like, I always think sports teams, you know, they need a lot of equipment, and that equipment is best negotiated from the person that actually manufactures that equipment throughout the year. And then the final one, and this is like a bit of a weird bugbear of mine, but whenever students email us kind of getting in touch because they want their society to be sponsored, it always, the way they address me is almost like some sort of royalty. You know, address us politely, but you don't need to keep this too formal. all I care about is what have you got? What have you got to offer? How can it help me? And let's just get to that place as quickly as possible. So cover the who, what, where, why, and how, but you don't need to, keep this too complicated and overly rigidly formal. I think that was one of the main things that kind of struck me. We'll pitch bits of work for clients which are hundreds of thousands of pounds, and if you look at our slide decks, they're not formal. We try and speak in plain language that everyone understands. You want to make the buying process as easy as possible, and if you're kind of filling it with lots of kind of complex language, like there's no need for long open prose at any stage. It's not adding any value. I want bullet points. I want short paragraphs like this that I can look at, see quickly, because really the decision maker is going to skim read this. They're not going to read the whole thing. So you need to communicate super quickly and super succinctly. So that is pretty much it in terms of the prepared slides. We'd love to kind of take questions. But yeah, don't know if there's, Josh, have we had any questions kind of come through as we go, or was there anything that stood out? I've got a question, actually, I'm in. Got a question from Alex. Here we go, Alex Lee, you guys have worked with us. So ValeFest Committee, which is, for everyone, is University of Birmingham student-run festival. We've worked with Hype Collective in previous years. Oh God, don't say anything negative. But every year we struggle to get enough corporate sponsorship. My question is, how much is too much to ask for? Great question. And ultimately, it's impossible to say. So I can't remember what we sent some like tourism boards to ValeFest like a couple of years ago, I think, or maybe a year ago. But ultimately, that is an impossible question to answer. And it's very much a chicken and egg scenario, because they're going to say to you, "I'll just let us know the price of it." But really, you've got no idea kind of what the budget is. And the budget for one brand might be £100. The budget for another brand might be £10,000. And kind of knowing it is almost impossible. I think what I would say is think about the value of what you're generating. So if you can say, for example, if you're a graduate recruiter and you're looking to run an event and have 100 people guaranteed to be sitting down and listening to me. Now, I think that is worth thousands of pounds. I really do. If it's, a couple of Facebook posts, then I think it's, if it's a couple of, paid Facebook posts, then, you're talking tens of pounds, basically. So have a think about kind of, I guess the first question you need to get from the potential sponsor is, what are you looking for and what's going to make this look really successful? And if they say, look, I'm looking to recruit X, Y, and Z, or I'm looking to sell X, Y, and Z to students, then that gives you something to kind of work back on. But just always find out the thing that's really important to them. So I'm sorry, I don't have like a more solid answer. I see sponsorship deals of 500 quid for small little things. The most we ever sponsored the society for was £5,000, which was a very big kind of sponsorship piece over the course of the year. So sorry, I've waffled, but I haven't got a good answer, basically. I'm going to go to Morgan. I'm the station manager for Livewire, the student radio station in Norwich. When working with Hype Collective, would we be paying you or providing promotion? You provide the promotion and we pay you. That's definitely the way this works. I would love it if you guys pay us, but that sounds quite immoral. So the way it works, is Morgan, is we work with a number of brands. So say we're working with Adobe, might be a good brand for you. They say we want to run a campaign at Norwich. So we'd approach societies that we think are a good fit for it. We've gone through a slight kind of business change. At the start, we just recruited a massive network of societies. And the trouble is that we didn't generate enough kind of sponsorship opportunities, and all our sponsorship opportunities were quite niche. So we tend now to just go out to relevant societies and say, look, we're working with whatever brand, they want to do X, Y, or Z on campus. Are you interested in helping us? So that's the way it would normally work. But yes, you get paid. Got Hannah here. Hi, Hannah. I'm on a committee for Geography Society. Is it still okay to get in touch with a company if you're asking them to give up some time for career employment subject talks? Yes, 100%. You should definitely get organisations come and provide employability talks. I genuinely would think of trying to charge them. Like, I know they're doing you a favour, but every single employer is like looking at how they can recruit graduates. So yeah, I mean, for free, it will make it a lot easier. Maybe you suggest that you do one for free and then you talk about, a long-term partnership afterwards or something like that. Cool. Questions are coming. This is great because I finished about half an hour early. Amy, I'm from the Uni of St Andrews, from the SU charity campaign. We run a fashion show, Hitchhike to Europe and Reg Week. Great. Coming from quite a small town and community, we always tend to focus on local brands to support us. This year, the thing's moved. This year, we know this might be more challenging due to Corona. What do you recommend as the first step for looking to get sponsorship from bigger brands? So kind of going back to, so bigger brands is harder. First thing is, I wouldn't automatically rule out the little local stuff. I just think it's certain sectors that are going to get hit. So as I said, you're not going to be getting those big sponsorship packages from nightclubs in the foreseeable future. However, I think there are local brands that are going to be doing okay at the moment and will have their kind of current marketing channels limited. So I think that's an opportunity for you. In terms of big brands, like the first thing is connections, right? Yours, I guess, will be quite a big society, and the best thing that you can do is communicate to your members the importance of connections. So if you've got 60 people in your society, say, and you've got 8 people in your exec, the 8 people in your exec are probably motivated to help you and find people in the introductions, right? If you can create 50% of that motivation across your entire membership and communicate the value of it to everyone, I think you're going to get somebody will have a connection with somebody who knows somebody who can really help you out. So I think it's something that we talk about as a business is that everyone has to become an advocate, an ambassador for the society. And everyone has that kind of shared responsibility. So at Hype Collective, I'm the face of the company. I'm the guy who, goes into pitches and stuff like that. However, whoever is in the organization has a responsibility to rep us, because you've got no idea where you're going to come into contact with that, next potential client. So yeah, I guess it's the most important thing you can, if you work back from connections being the goal, the most important thing you can do is create a system that motivates the people at the entire society to build those connections. Another question from Alex. If we are counting on hoping to get a large amount of sponsorship money, would you recommend trying to get lots of local small sponsors, or risk it by putting that energy into big 1 or 2 big money sponsorship deals? Or are you feeling lucky, Alex? So I think you've got to do both. I think and potentially, I don't know how big your team is, but potentially this kind of ties into the previous question of kind of getting more people involved in the process. But I think maybe you have 2 teams, a local sponsorship team and a national sponsorship team, and the national one looks after national brands. I think I've obviously made some predictions about what's going to happen due to COVID, of the types of organisation that are going to be spending money. Basically making predictions right now is a fool's game, and I'm not entirely sure which way it will go. I guess if you're looking, and Veilfest will have a certain type of brand that's interested in sponsoring it, right? So you're unlikely to be going with the graduate recruiters to Veilfest. So I guess it's got to be both, I'm afraid. But I think mapping out what you're like a little bit tighter on what types of organisation you think will sponsor it is a really good way to set about doing it. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question. This is weird answering questions completely on my own. I've no idea whether anyone likes this stuff. Right, Tom Jackson, another station manager here. Would you approach things differently if you're approaching a potential sponsor for a big one-off project in comparison to a regular event in the society in general? Right, so you're looking to upgrade equipment, studio space. Cool. So I would offer better rates for a long-term partnership. So to give you an idea, it's different. We're a marketing agency, and essentially the way that clients buy our time is they buy hours. So, Co-op will say a project which we want to do, we'll give them an idea, and we'll say, right, that's 6 days work from this person and 3 days work from this person. Co-op qualify for a 20% reduction on rates because we have a long-term relationship with them. If it's a one-off project, I would charge them more. I always think that the president of your society hasn't got, or like the exec hasn't got very long. You've got a year, right? So you want to get people in quickly, right? If you were in for a much longer period, and maybe that will be the case for certain people, then you might be like, okay, we're going to do this small thing as a trial, and then we're going to do a bigger thing. I'd be reluctant to do that, because I think if you reduce your prices for trials, they'll use you for the trial, exploit you, and because you've got a small audience, they'll go, right, well, we've already spoken to those like 80 people. So one-off projects, I would keep your prices high, and I'd offer like a significant reduction for a long-term partnership. Apart from that, I guess it's just what comes from their needs. So you might have an employer and applications close in December. They don't necessarily need a long-term partnership. You might be partnering with like a drinks brand or energy drink or something like that. They always want to sell energy drinks. So that might suit a long-term kind of partnership. Cool. Keep going. Morgan. I'm from Uni of York, and I'm on committees for both college and the Students' Union RAG. Which organisation would be interested in promoting RAG volunteering schemes? What could I offer? So, RAG is, I think, I bang on about the opportunities for brands to sponsor RAG societies constantly, because I think it's the best thing for a brand to be involved with. Like it doesn't matter whether you're toothpaste, every single brand is looking for some sort of CSR purpose, right? And we can be very cynical about that. Don't worry, I am. But let's use it. And I think, I think like every single brand that takes CSR seriously, and by that I mean they say that they take CSR seriously, should be looking to partner with RAG societies. Before, I would also add into that certain very specific niche ones. So you've got like organisations that work in like volunteering abroad and things like that. Now, obviously, right now is not a great time for them, but traditionally I would classify them as like a kind of key audience for you. But yeah, outside that, I would be saying anyone that cares a lot about brand kind of CSR. So, out of our client roster, I'd say the one that should be doing more work with RAG societies is Co-op, and I think they're one that we're looking at doing something potentially this year. And then kind of other organisations that have that specific kind of niche in volunteering. I guess the other thing with RAG societies is they're massive in terms of sometimes they're run by a small group, but they will always have a massive reach. So you should be able to beat other societies just on reach. So in that respect, they don't have to be a CSR related organisation. It can be, Domino's Pizza, just want to get more pizza out to people. Cool, hopefully that answers that. Phoebe, hi, is the likelihood any good for bigger organisations supporting smaller unis? I study at Arts Uni Bournemouth. We've only got a few thousand students, but we're obviously very niche as students aren't interested in ethics planet. Would brands be reluctant to engage with a smaller uni. So in the past, I think there's been a massive bias towards universities that are bigger and kind of Russell Group universities. And I think that's reducing. I actually think one of the impacts of COVID will be that reduces further because we're doing a lot more kind of virtual events like this, right? So one of your issues before would have been, okay, we're going to sponsor you guys and we're going to come down and do like a sustainability workshop or something like that. And that would be difficult because you've got to get someone senior to come down from London, Manchester, Edinburgh, wherever they are, and you will face a bias that, you know, the decision maker went to Leeds, so we need to go to Leeds. I think that's reducing at the moment because we're not going to be physically running events together. It's highly unlikely. So I think brands will be more willing to engage at smaller universities and smaller niche universities. What you probably have to do is have a think about how, like, that's going to be an objection that they might have. So have a think about how you package up your offering to ensure that it's getting out to a bigger reach. One thing that I think would be really great to see is to see like similar societies at different universities collaborate to create kind of a joint proposition. So obviously, if you're an arts uni, you know, there's loads of arts universities. Why don't you find like 5 societies around the country that kind of do the same thing and see if you can kind of go in with a joint proposition to those national brands? And I think that might help win. So yeah, I think is that, have I answered all the questions? Oh, we've got one more.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, Simon, there is one more. I think you've probably seen it at the bottom from Phoebe.
That was the one that I just answered, actually.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I've got one about what do you think about getting sponsorships from student holiday trip companies? Surely they must be struggling at the moment. Morgan, yes. They are struggling. The trouble is most of them are furloughed and most of them aren't doing anything. So immediately this week, I wouldn't be getting in touch with any kind of travel organisations. We've got a couple of travel clients and it's pretty bleak, to be honest. So, you know, let's hope that this term or this year, or at least this academic year, they're back up and running and return to normality. I think potentially you could look at some like national, like, you know, within the UK travel options. So there's like YHA and stuff like that will be back open as normal, but I can't imagine anyone getting a big sponsorship package off like SDA Travel or that sort of thing at the moment. Cool.
Wonderful. I think that is all the questions answered, and we have reached the end of our session time now. But on behalf of everybody, Simon, you know, from the attendees to myself and everybody at NASFA, a massive thank you for running this session today. I found it really insightful, and I'm sure that everybody in the chat also found it really, really useful. If anybody wants to continue the discussion regarding what Simon's just spoke about, we'll be moving over to the coffee shop shortly. The post in the webinar chat if you can manage to find it. But yeah, no, Simon, thank you so much, and we'll move over to the coffee shop whenever you're ready.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much.